Hey everyone, this is Brano, and I'm here to answer the question, what makes a good idea for a video game? And I'm still trying to work this out, but I think there are three things that make a video game idea a good video game idea. So, it needs to be achievable, it needs to be sellable, and it needs to be enjoyable. So, achievability out of these three things, I would say, is the most important part when making a game. And the reason is because if the game is not achievable, but it's really sellable, and if it works out, it's really enjoyable, you basically have the idea of an MMORPG where you can do anything and everything. And there's a lot of Kickstarters made on that promise, and they haven't come out yet. So it's impossible, so it is really a terrible idea unless you plan on scamming people, which I hope you don't. Now, I would say one of the reasons why indies that play a lot of indie games and smaller scoped games struggle less with coming up with achievable ideas is because they have significantly more exposure to games that they like that are within their skill range. So if you come across a bunch of mechanics and genres, and you get to see what you like, what you dislike, and from there you may go, I've got a game idea that I could do. Let's test this out and see if it's worth pursuing. And a big part of that is like the enjoyability of playing those games, because you gotta want to make the game. Like, part of achievability isn't just whether or not it is theoretically possible to make the game, it's whether or not you're gonna stay motivated for long enough to create that game. Creative work, when you're passionate about it, is the most fulfilling work you can ever do. But creative work on something that you're not passionate about is torture. And when you consider the risk and effort to the reward ratio of game dev, you really need to know that you should either quit or you should find a balance between making games for yourself and making games for the market. Because you do have to compromise with sellability. And this is where people like Chris Kozowski of How to Market a Game and Scientia Ludos, the guy that made Choo Choo Charles, come in. They both make really good videos on how to make a sellable game. And I really think that anyone should watch them just to learn from them. Not to believe what they say one-to-one and do everything that they like. What they say is not gospel, but it's a good thing to listen to understand, and to say like, okay, cool, I can take the parts that I agree with into my own ideas within the future. And I think it's really important to not underestimate the importance of sellability, because there are going to be ideas where you say them and people, without seeing anything that you've made, go, yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I'd want to play that. And this is why, as I said before, if you make a MMORPG that can do anything, you have probably got a Kickstarter that can like actually get funded. But once again, it's just like, it's that sellable. Now, one of my issues with the game I released, Healed to Death, was that I created a game that I wasn't able to explain it within a single sentence or a single screenshot. So I think the best way I can describe Healed to Death in a single sentence is MMORPG healing meets roguelike. That's basically the best way that I can describe it. But there's a lot of knowledge that goes into understanding what that means. And even the people with the knowledge is going, I have no idea what to expect. So this is a big problem I had when trying to sell Healed to Death. In comparison, the prototype that I've been making, which is still really basic, is really it's really easy to understand. I brought it to a local game dev night, and this game got more positive reception on this like really basic release of, like, this is basically the entire thing. It's super basic. That game, that prototype right there got more positive and initial reception of, oh, I want to try this one out. than my Heal to Death game did during the entire time I brought it there. Maybe the final time I brought it there, because it was so polished and very close to being released, people were more keen on giving it a try. But in general, that prototype has a much more sellable idea, because people see cube with a capsule with something that looks like a sword and enemies walking towards them, third person. All right, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm getting myself into. You just see a screenshot and you understand what you're getting into, because everyone's played a game that has a guy with a sword that kills enemies, and everyone's had fun with a game that has a guy with a sword that kills enemies. It seems to be like people have enjoyed that in the past, so it's sellable. And let's just talk about enjoyability now. So overall, if you make a fun game, it's going to sell better. And so execution and polish are a large part of enjoyability. But that execution and polish has to be built upon a solid gameplay loop. And that's where the idea comes from. And one of the things I'm having to acknowledge is that the best video game ideas very often come from playing it safe. Like, if you have played a game that you like and you copy the gameplay loop, you know it's a good gameplay loop. So it's just a lot less thought process that is needed into whether or not your game is going to be fun, and you can just focus on the execution, which is determined by the achievability of your idea. Now, I do think that novelty is really important to stand out in a crowded market, and if you are going to make something novel, you need to play test the hell out of it and iterate on it, and there's a lot of design work that has to be done, because with Heal to Death, there's no other game like it. And I could only compare to MMORPG healing and other roguelikes, but the combination is new and novel, so that was a lot of effort into turning that into something that actually kind of felt fun. I had to scrap many ideas, many gameplay modes, until I finally found something that kind of worked. And yeah, there's a lot of risk and effort that comes with this. Now, instead, though, if your idea falls within a market where people just want more variety of the same idea, you don't need to be novel. This is the whole two cakes thing, and I have made videos on two cakes before. It's a really good analogy, and I've basically explained why I think it works, but also all the circumstances where this doesn't work. But if you can have a market like that, this is awesome. Like, if you can fall into this and still come across as novel, then you have an amazing idea, because at that point, all you need to do is just achieve it, which I would say is awesome. So if you can have an achievable idea that is sellable, and you already kind of know that you just have to rely on execution for the idea to be enjoyable, you've got a great idea. Now, if I'm to rank my current ideas so far, so let's just rank Heal to Death. So that game was achievable, but it was on the edge of achievable. It was a really tough game to make, but I knew that I could do it, but it took a lot of effort. And because it took a lot of effort, it has a cost of the execution, because it's on the edges of my ability to make the game. But I did it, I learned a lot, and I'm really proud of it. Now, it was somewhat sellable. Heal to Death was somewhat sellable to a niche crowd. And I think what kind of saved it from being completely obscure and ignored was the enjoyability, because I sent it to a number of roguelike YouTubers, and some had done MMORPG healing in the past, and they went, all right, cool, I'm part of this niche novel crowd, I should do a video on it. And because they enjoyed their experience, I was actually able to get a decent amount of attention on launch, and that got me into the hot new releases. and I was able to sell a decent amount of copies from that. So in short, I think fairly achievable, niche sellability, but it was enjoyable, and that's kind of what saved it. Now, my current game, the prototype that you just saw, this game is very achievable. I am going to complete the core gameplay loop very soon, and then I just need to polish it, add content, and make it the best it can possibly be. And I think it has really broad audience appeal. When you see people saying like, oh, I'm gonna like that game if I try it, and it literally is just capsules with a basic sword at a local event, it's just like, I work so hard to get even like a fraction of that with Heal to Death. So I think the game is sellable, and when I think of roguelikes, I don't think of 3D action games, so I think maybe it's not going to need a lot of innovation in order to stand out. And because of that, I can just use a bunch of 3D action games that I know of and execute decently on them for the idea to be enjoyable. So I'm pretty optimistic about the prototype that I'm making. Still, it's really early and I'm having to do guesswork. But that's how I feel about the idea, and at the end of the day, that's like the free rolls that I think can help land you on whether or not you have a good idea or not. So, once again, it's got to be achievable by you. It needs to be sellable, and this can be, it's either got to be novel or it's going to be in a genre where simply just existing is novel enough. So yeah, and then it's got to be enjoyable. So those are the three things, and maybe the idea ends up being a disaster, but I think I'm on the right path with this one.